all of you who join us today, and a warm welcome to this special event on behalf of ISSA, the International Step-by-Step Association. I am Mihaela Ionescu, the Program Director in ISSA, and I'm honored to open the celebration of 10 years of the Roma Earliest Network. It's not about the longevity of the initiative, but about celebrating the commitment, the continued commitment of ISSA and all of us today here, and many who are not necessarily with us today, towards seeing young Roma and traveler children thrive. Early years matter tremendously for all children, and we have a huge responsibility to ensure that the environment in which Roma and traveler children grow are enabling their healthy growth, development, and learning. Today, we will look back at the journey and the footprints of the initiative, Roma Earliest Network. We will talk about the present, and we will break the silence about the status of Roma children in Europe. We aim to bring more allies, to build more bridges among professionals, organizations, decision makers, to see more tangible changes in the lives of Roma and travel children, their families, and their communities. We are extremely grateful to the Early Childhood Program at the Open Society Foundations for the sustained support since the birth of REYN, and currently to the Roma Initiatives Office, who is currently supporting the initiative. Throughout the years, the initiative was led by highly committed professionals, and all of them are with us today from the ISSA Secretariat. Each of them contributed to what REYN is today, and each of the national coordinators and networks contributed to what REYN is today. Today, I will give the floor to Alyosha Rudash, ISSA Program Manager, who is currently coordinating REYN, and he will take us on this journey today. As a network, we really and strongly believe in the power of catalyzing movements across organizations and professionals in joint and strategic and effective actions. Hope that today will show that there is much that we can achieve together, and that we are continuing to be strongly committed to this cause. A warm welcome again, and hope that you will enjoy listening, and will make you reflect a lot on what each of us as professionals and organizations can continue to contribute. Thank you. Alyosha.
Thank you, Mihaela, for your introduction, and a warm welcome, dear participants. It is my honor to be the moderator of today's session. I'll be more than happy to walk you through the session, through the rich program we have prepared for you, so that you, for those of you who still do not know what REYN is and what REYN does, and what REYN influences, so that you can get on board with us, so we can join forces together in making young children's life in Europe better and more prosperous. Shukar di sa originenge, kivauninas, voyaushne sam kaisa nadia mensa khetaun. Sarmen uroma peinas khetaun samzora leder. I'm sure that today you will hear a lot of great speakers' interventions, a lot of ideas and inspiring thoughts. We have prepared a rich program with many speakers coming from different parts of Europe. And today we would like to show you the diversity and the richness that exists in our REYN community, as we call it, a big REYN family. I'm sure today we will be hearing a lot of words of gratitude and thankfulness. Therefore, let me start with one myself. Thanks to all of you participating today and for allocating time. I'm happy to see such a large number of participants that are committed to early childhood and especially young Roma children's status in our societies. And let's start with the official program now. We will start with a short video.
me, briefly, it would be like a channel, a voice of those who are not, whose voices are not being heard.
Now, without any further ado, it is my utmost honor to introduce you to our keynote speakers of the day. We will start REYN's journey with Sarah Klaus, honorary member of ISSA's board. Sorry for my, I'm a little bit nervous today since I have a very important role to do. Adjunct professor with the Center for Child and Human Development in Georgetown University School of Medicine, and previously at its closure at the end of 2020, she also directed the Early Childhood Program at the Open Society Foundation. Sarah will be accompanied by Dr. Adrian Marsh, researcher in Romani studies and Romani early years. He designed and managed a large portfolio of Romani and travel early childhood development projects and programs implemented by Open Society Foundation's Early Childhood Program, and as well set up together with Sarah the Romani Early Years Network for Educators. Both of them are very important and crucial names in REYN's history. And let's start at the beginning. Dear Sarah and dear Adrian, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And Alyosha, what a wonderful start to the event, and what a powerful video that you presented. Congratulations to everybody on the 10th anniversary of the Roma Early Years Networks, or REYN. It's great to be here to celebrate this milestone with all of you. My colleague Adrian Marsh and I are here today to share a little bit of background and history about how and why the Roma Early Years Networks were launched. Like the International Step-by-Step Association, the Roma Early Years Networks also have their roots in the Step-by-Step program. For those of you who don't know, but most of you probably do, Step-by-Step is the early childhood education reform program that was launched by Open Society Foundation's network across Central Europe and Central Asia in 1994. Step-by-Step introduced child-centered, inclusive, community-focused approaches into early childhood systems in more than 30 countries over 20 years. It prioritized children experiencing adversity from the beginning, and inclusion of Roma children into high-quality early education and services was a top priority from the beginning, especially in countries with high Roma populations. A number of the priorities that you can find in the Roma Early Years Networks can be traced back to those organizations that were implementing Step-by-Step in the early years. For example, Step-by-Step was very instrumental in introducing initiatives to hire Roma into the early childhood workforce, because we recognized how important this is for Roma children and their parents, and for other children and their parents as well. I first met Alyosha actually in a Step-by-Step preschool in Slovenia, and I think Adrian was there at the time too. In order to counteract bias and prejudice, Step-by-Step supported the development of anti-bias and diversity-focused resources. The program brought together experts from Eastern Europe and the US to develop what's evolved into the Embracing Diversity program that's at ISSA. And I really encourage you, if you don't know about this program, to spend a little time on the ISSA website and find out more about it. It's a very powerful way to counteract discrimination and prejudice. Advocacy to advance the rights of Roma children and their families has been a theme of REYN, and it was always a theme of the Step-by-Step network. Step-by-Step programs help demonstrate that young Roma children assigned to segregated special schools did not belong there, and instead they belong with everybody else in regular schools. Findings from this important initiative, called the Special Schools Project, was used as evidence in the DH case at the European Court of Human Rights, which is a really important milestone in Roma advocacy around education, inclusion, and equity and rights. Beginning in 2009, Open Society, the Roma Education Fund, UNICEF launched together the Roma Early Childhood Inclusion National Reports. These reports document the context of young Roma children and families and pull together a lot of very vital information to support robust advocacy. And this information included not only national data, but also insights from Roma community members and professionals who work with children and Roma children and families. And they provide an initial set of concrete recommendations to improve policies, practices, and services. I was very excited that REYN is continuing to collect the information that's needed to advocate on behalf of young Roma and traveler children and families, and we'll hear more about current initiatives in the last segment of this event. After the Roma Education Fund was established, Open Society continued to expand early childhood services, working hand in hand with Roma NGOs and communities. To do this well, we decided it was really important to hire a full-time staff member from the community, and this is how I met Adrian Marsh. Adrian has worked in the field of Roma early childhood and rights for more than a decade at the time that he joined the team at Open Society, and he brought a whole bunch of new ideas with him. He introduced us to a network of professionals who were working on early childhood for Roma and travelers in the UK, and one of his ideas was to establish similar networks across the region. I'm going to stop here and let Adrian continue with the next part of the story. But before I go, I just want to congratulate all of you, and especially to thank Alyosha, Zorica, Francesca, the team at ISSA, all of you working in the Roma Early Years Networks, and all of the NGOs connected with ISSA that are working on this important work for all that you're doing for Roma children and families. Adrian, I'm going to pass over to you now for part 2 of the history of REYN.
Thank you, Sarah. Firstly, good morning and congratulations to all of you, especially all of you that have brought all of us together to look at the story of our Roma Early Years Network and the national network organisations which developed from them, how they all started. It's wonderful to be able to share this and celebrate with all of you. Some people may know me as an academic, but actually I started in this field in early years and play. For 20 odd years, I was an early years and play worker. I began working on Lee Park Adventure Playground in Hampshire, which is down in the south part of England. And I started there in 1980, and then by 2002, some 22 years later, I was working as a traveller education teacher in the traveller education service in the London borough of Haringey, specifically in Tottenham, immensely diverse area. I'd been working in all kinds of situations and at all levels. I eventually was managing big play and out-of-school projects which had 12 to 15 staff during holiday periods. And we were delivering what was then called multicultural play programs to very diverse communities, as I mentioned, including Gypsies, Roma and Irish traveller families. Now I'm going to use the word Gypsies. It's without any offence to any of my friends, colleagues, brothers and sisters in Europe. But in the United Kingdom, Gypsies, Roma traveller is the legal formulation. It is the formulation that appears in strategies, guidelines and in government policies. And I myself would identify as a Gypsy traveller. So I use that with the mindfulness that it is not appropriate in Europe, but it is what we call ourselves. So I eventually ended up in Haringey's Council's Early Years and Play section. And as part of this work over 20 years, I'd been setting up training, learning communities, skill sharing workshops amongst staff and workers. The staff and workers at the time were very much from a kind of largely unqualified background. Lots of them from Black, Asian, Turkish, Greek, Cypriot and minority ethnic communities who'd had minimal education and had largely been excluded through racism or failed by the education services that they'd come up against. I'd also tried to work with INSET, that's in-service training providers at community colleges and in post-compulsory education institutions, working out ways that these young early years and play workers could gain qualifications through practice-based learning and mentoring. And these were effectively vocational qualifications and vocational programs that were later established in the UK as part of what was called BTEC and those sorts of programs. They were immensely successful across a range of things, not just childcare and early years, but also many, many other more practical-based skills and qualification through learning by doing, as it were. The efforts to improve the service and improve the demographics, particularly in the London Borough of Haringey, were very successful. And what had been an early years and play service that was dominated largely by older white women became much more representative. It's very much altered. And the workforce began to reflect the communities which we were then serving. So there were a lot more Black, Asian, and minority ethnic staff engaged in this qualification process and in professional development and learning in early years provision, and also delivering much higher quality services to the communities. Management too became much more diverse in these circumstances, and it was astonishing to see a whole shift away from older white men who'd been running the services for years, to Black and Asian women in particular, taking up positions of authority and leadership. I, of course, wasn't the only person working on this. There were a large number of people. This kind of thing takes a hugely collaborative effort. But it was about moving early years staff and provision from what was a kind of charity-based model almost, and poorly trained and qualified, largely voluntary staff, to a highly professional provision with skilled educated staff and a much higher quality delivery. The success of this programme in Haringey and in Tottenham in particular was led and driven by Zena Brabazon as head of service. She was head of the early years and play service, and that she became a mentor and a close friend and eventually a consultant for the early childhood programme when I worked at Open Society Foundations. And her political career, which she still continues as a local councillor, has seen her battling for decades for children's rights and provision across a wide range of communities. At Haringey Traveller Education Service, I was lucky enough to work with another very powerful, very strong woman as manager of the service, Judy Bowen. And she was also hugely important to me as a guide and as a friend and as a colleague, as Sarah was later when I was at the Open Society Foundation. So I had these relationships with these immensely important people, which have stood me in good stead ever since. What all of them had in common, as far as I was concerned, they had a number of other things in common, but as far as I was concerned, was their indomitable commitment to children's rights, to diversity, to equalities and inclusion. And they were also people who supported initiative and imagination. So they gave me a great deal of liberty to run with ideas and, in fact, encourage them, sometimes a little too much. Ask Sarah about the Romney Rights Train idea one day. I'm sure she can tell you. Romney Early Years Network came out of these experiences and these relationships. The early childhood program at OSF had taken me on as both an experienced qualified early years practitioner and teacher, and by this time I'd managed to gain academic qualifications and became a highly qualified member of the Romney and Traveller communities, with a well-versed in advocacy, activism, and in academic research, specifically about Gypsy, Roma, and Traveller pasts. I went through the School of Slavonic and East European Studies to gain a degree and an MA in East European history. I got a PhD at Greenwich in Romani studies later. As part of this experience of working with Gorgio, that's what we would say for non-Romani teachers and staff, I've been part of these professional learning networks, these learning communities. And one in particular, to give you an example, was called NAT Plus. It was the National Association of Teachers for Travellers. The plus was the fact that it also included boaters, bargees, new travellers, show people, fairground folk, a wide community. And there were also other groups that advocated jointly for rights, improvements in education outcomes, better caravan sites for gypsies and travellers, against discrimination and unjust laws. And of course the UK has seen recently the introduction of the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Bill, which specifically discriminates on the basis of race against gypsies and travellers, mobile gypsies and travellers. And a host of other issues which gypsies, travellers and latterly migrant Roma into the UK faced on a daily basis. So TES services and these other organisations, they didn't just focus on delivering education support for families and children in Romani and traveller communities, but they were also advocates, allies, working together with us, with Romani communities and traveller communities, I wanted early years professionals and practitioners working with Roma communities to share this experience, including those from the communities themselves, many of whom went on to being volunteers and professionals and qualified teachers in TES units or in schools as staff. Bringing those Romani and traveller experiences from the UK and other European countries I'd worked in by this time, including in Turkey. I'd worked in a lot of places by 2011. To working with Roma without that dominant ideology, which I faced in many, many places, in many different parts of Europe, which is, the West is best, transplanting Western European models or American models into Eastern Europe. That was a particular focus for working with Roma in countries that were part of the Decade for Roma Inclusion. And I noticed that the Open Society Foundations had maintained this particular focus without realizing that there was indeed a distinctive and rapid deterioration for Gypsies, travellers, Manouche, Sinti, Roma, Reisanda, Romanlar, and all other groups. So this particular focus on Central Eastern and Southeastern Europe didn't take into account these wider experiences. Romaness in this sort of context was somewhat narrow in its conception of identity and belonging, and to some extent excluded my community, the Gypsies and the travellers, and it led to misunderstandings about who we were, who were Gypsies, who were travellers, and who were the others, who were the Reisanda and Roma, etc. And what experiences might be shared. We had actually organised the first World Romani Congress, of course, Gypsies and Travellers in Britain, along with other people on the 8th of April 1971, and a major event, a milestone. And we'd been successful in the 60s and 70s in securing race relations legislation which recognised Gypsies and Travellers as particular minority ethnic communities. And others in Sweden, for example, such as the Roma and Reisanda, they'd achieved significant gains through the Commission for Roma Questions. Early years and early childhood provision for Roma had been part and parcel of the early childhood programme at OSF, but not tapped into this broader range of experiences from Romani Pen. So REYN was an idea that came from all these experiences and relationships, knowledges, expertise, and this desire to improve from the earliest years the lives of Romani and traveller people, the widest possible community, the whole of Romanipe. So it was a conversation in Paris, actually, that I had with Bernard Rourke from Roma Initiatives at the time, and Judith Zira from Roma Education Fund. And I was trying to explain this notion of creating these this sort of learning community, this network. And that led to the conceptualization, development, and implementation of the Romani Early Years Network, and this evolving partnership with the International Step by Step Association, which of course continues to work in this. This was launched 10 years ago and is still going strong, as we say, which is wonderful. The initiative has taken huge steps in many directions, very exciting directions, and there are still some to stake, I hope, such as Romani leadership overall. I long to see that. I long to see membership and equality as part of the International Step by Step Association board, with Romani and Traveller members on that. I'd like to see a very clear qualification pathway, a way into early years and play that brings a higher level of training and knowledge with mandatory components about Romani and Traveller culture, languages, traditions and histories in that curriculum. So that provision is not just reflective of dominant language and cultures, and that anybody who's working with communities, whether they are Romani or Traveller or not, whether they're Gorja, has some knowledge and background which gives them the kind of skill set that will enable them to improve their performance and delivery. I think also some of the other Romani Early Years Network tasks and goals are to do with engaging with cohorts of young Romani and Traveller paraprofessionals and professionals as they come into this field and responding to their ideas and developing what we see as this diverse, inclusive, qualified, educated professional workforce, delivering excellent services and provision, and making a difference, ultimately raising attainment. And Alyosha asked me to come up with a quote, a statement really. And I would like to, one of my great heroes, and as I mentioned earlier, I worked on Martin Luther King Adventure Playground in the 1980s, set up in London, but by Coretta Scott King and the Martin Luther King Foundation. And he's always been one of my great heroes. So to quote him, to some extent. I want to see the Romani Early Years Network part of the process whereby young Romani and traveller people are judged not by the colour of their skin or any other erroneous qualities, but by the content of their character. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you again for organising all of this, and it's a great pleasure to be here celebrating with all of you today.
Thank you, dear Adrian. Thank you, dear Sarah. What an inspiring beginning of story. A lot of individuals, a lot of people, a lot of Roma women and women in general who were inspiring all of us throughout the way, which is very great to hear. So for your contribution, I'm very grateful, and as well for all the efforts both of you made and invested in making this initiative grow stronger, larger, and bigger. So this is how we started unlocking the potential of the initiative. And here we are 10 years later, talking about successes, achievements, potentials, and stories still to be revealed and discovered. But now let's also continue with another part of the story. A short stop in Budapest with our dear REYN coordinator Zsuzsa László from REYN Hungary and Partners Hungary, where the national REYN is basically based. Let's hear from you, Zsuzsa, what you have prepared for us.
Hello, everyone. So before I go too emotional, as my friend Mihaela used to do, because I see so many faces I love, I just quickly jump into my presentation. That's going to be short, 5 slides, I think 5 minutes. So Ayosha told me to introduce what REYN Hungary does. I hope you can see it. But I was thinking, why Hungary? Because we are so many networks functioning well. So I think I can speak on behalf of any network. This is just an example. We are going to show what happened here. But basically, any of my colleagues from any REYN national coordinator should be sitting here. So I thought it's interesting to show you what happened. So I was digging into my files, and I found my first final report that I sent to OSF in 2014. And this is our new logo, and we are really proud because it's made by a Romani graphic designer. And we were voting, so the members were voting. So we were trying to use the international REYN logo with some Hungarian colors. So this is just a short stop. So I'm not going to read it to you, just mentioning some of the facts that at the beginning, we immediately had 200 members. That can be something that was really powerful. We set up the Facebook group, the Facebook page, the website. We had a REYN consultation group that is still working. And we started with strategy workshops. So it was really at the beginning. We translated, printed the international leaflet manifesto, but we really didn't have an identity yet. We were just kind of following what REYN International does, or the logo and everything, and we just jumped in. I would spend more time in where we are now, and I highlighted there some parts which I think it's worthwhile mentioning, what happened and why. So we are really proud of these 800 members that we have, because they are all one by one enrolled on our online registration form. So this is not something that we went into a school and 100 more. So this is people, individuals who are visiting our website and want to be members. We have a really active online communication channels on Facebook group, especially on the page, because we have a REYN communication officer, because we realize that it's a profession, being a good communicator, and it's not necessarily the REYN coordinator who is good in that. So that was a very important step for us. And we are really proud, I didn't highlight it, the REYN Online Academy, because it's a monthly academy that we do. 20 to 30 members always join, sometimes 50, sometimes 10. And it's already the 2nd or the 3rd year that we do that, and it's a brand. So that's why people come, because the REYN Online Academy already means that some, professor from the university will talk about some important stuff, and then other teachers and kindergarten teachers would join, even if they are not members, but before joining, they have to be members. So that's the trick. But basically, we are running this on a monthly basis, and I think that's one of our secrets. And we ask every January on a survey what the topic should be this year. So it's not us who finds out, from the top, but from the bottom they can vote and they can suggest new topics. And in January, then I'm looking for professors, and that's how we set up this the whole year, the academy. We have the web page active. Another very important thing I would like to say here is that we launched the REYN Award, second year now, and it's a huge media, followed with a huge media campaign. You might have seen it on our Facebook page, because the REYN so we hired a filming crew, and they go and they shoot short films about the awardees. We have they are all Roma professionals working with small children. The kindergarten teachers, social workers, many other professionals, and I will show you a picture later. It's a really emotional and great gala that we have, like a mini Oscar. They are getting awards, and it's just amazing. You should come once. And of course, we did the research like every other REYN, but I think Fernando will talk about that. So what is the secret that we are still working and we are growing and nonstop? I think the first is the passion of Partners Hungary, the passion of myself, who is crazy about this, and the motto that Adrian was talking about. Ayosha also asked me my motto, and that's it, that we are writing history. And I think that's what leads REYN Hungary ongoing, because it's happening. The continuous funding, I don't want to forget that, because it never stopped, and I think it's pretty important to live. Being in an international network, so I can ask anytime any help from Ayosha or whoever at that moment is with us. Ability to continuously renew. The professional communication, I meant that we are hiring professionals if needed, so it's not only us who have to solve all the problems. Hearing the voice of the members, as I said, also the survey every year. Find our own identity as National REYN, so we are not necessarily doing advocacy, because as you see, the last part is working in a hostile political environment. We have to decide that maybe we don't do what other REYN national or network does, because sometimes just a different story that we have. So we are trying to create our own identity. And of course, believing in long-term change. That's quite a hard one, because we know that when we do it now, maybe 20 years later, dead children will be another REYN awardee, but we have to be patient. And that was my story. And these are the beautiful professionals from the Roma community that happened 2 weeks ago, and really amazing. All the family members came, and now they are out on Facebook, and the whole community sees them, and I think it's very powerful. So thank you. That was the news from Hungary.
Thank you for the news, Zsuzsa, and thank you for sharing also with us this inspiring part. And we've been all following you on social media, so if you can please share the link in the chat so that also other participants can check out the videos. They're all subtitled in English, and really amazing job that was done in Hungary. Great. Thank you, Zsuzsa. And actually, as you heard from REYN Hungary and from Zsuzsa, it's a story about REYN in a nutshell. A lot of things are happening. We are all proud about what we are doing, and we are all very committed and devoted. This is our mission because we believe in it, and this is our devotion because we know that we can make a difference. And why? Because we are patient. We are not forcing anything. We are waiting. We are patient and continuing working. But now we will start unfolding the story with all the little pieces so that you can better understand what is behind the story that actually Zsuzsa shared with all of us. And it is my pleasure now to give the word to my dearest colleague that sits next to me, Zorica Trikic, the Senior Program Manager at ISSA, who actually also served as the first REYN coordinator, and this is how I get in touch with ISSA as well. Knowing her commitment and devotion in making difference for children in need and being many times inspired by her expertise on diversity, inclusion, and quality, and I could continue, I can assure you that the story of REYN will start unfolding in an inspirational way. Zorica, the floor is yours.
Wow, thank you, Alyosha, for this introduction. And as Zsuzsa said, it is emotional, and I think that that my eyes will show you the most emotional moments during my speech. But I would like to start with hi to all old and new REYN friends. And thank you for inviting me. Now I'm looking at Alyosha. Thank you for inviting me today to talk about REYN, the initiative that I was responsible for in ISSA for several years in its inception phase. And the initiative so close to my heart and in tune with my passion for challenging inequalities and giving voice to those who are usually silenced and neglected, especially young Roma children, their families, and communities. But let me start with the cheerful launch of the network in 2012, and we are not going to share these photos. It's a secret, but that happened in Opatija, Croatia, and it was full of dancing and singing. I'm sure that Fernando remembers. After that launch, we remained with our big dreams and the vision of creating high-quality, inclusive early years provisions where children can develop and flourish, and because of their human capacities, where they are supported and stimulated regardless of their ethnic origin. We also believe that REYN had the power to be the agent of change, but at the same time a huge responsibility to take actions to prevent social inequality, economic exclusion, racial prejudice, and cultural marginalization of Roma children. And of course, after celebration, you face reality. So we had to translate our big dreams and the vision into practice. We needed a well-elaborated strategic plan. We needed practical ideas and key documents to provide REYN with visibility and guidelines. And I want to use this opportunity to extend our huge gratitude to Roma Kopachi initiatives at the Open Society Foundation Early Childhood Program and the first REYN advisory group, to Samantha Baranja, Marian Daragiu, Miroslav Sklenka, Andor Urmoš, and of course, Adrian Marsh. And you will meet some of them today. At that time, the so much loved REYN pin was developed together with REYN manifesto, and when the slogan "No More Lost Romani and Traveler Generations" was created. We based our work on the findings from the research done by Kopachi Initiative, which pinpoint the scarcity of Romani ECD professionals, pedagogues, and paraprofessionals, a lack of adequate and culturally sensitive resources, and only few mechanisms for professional development opportunities to support and empower practitioners working with Romani families, children, and communities in early year settings. We decided to focus on offering professional development opportunities, training, study visits, and international networking across the ECD sector, because our main goal was to develop skills and promote good practices to empower and inspire those who were on the front line. The focus of professional development was on quality and equity, and we organized study visits to Romania, Slovenia, Slovakia, Croatia, and the UK, where REYN members welcomed us and showcased their best practices. We delivered training and workshops on quality services, thank you, Michaela, embracing diversity, thank you, Zorica, Persona Doll, thank you, Zsuzsa, Living Library, thank you to Italian members, parenting, thank you to Sara and Iliana, she's not with us at this moment. And the second language learning, thank you, Samantha, in Hungary, Serbia, Italy, and the Netherlands. We established REYN blog, Facebook, and web page to create a virtual space where people could brag about what they are doing. Additionally, REYN members participated in ISSA and NAT Plus conferences, supported launches of REYN national networks, and Roma early childhood inclusion reports. More than 250 REYN members were part of these events. The added value for ISSA is that our current REYN coordinator, Alyosha Rudas, is one of them. And additionally, our main researcher, Fernando, was also part of the crew. So REYN started as a network open to all Romani and non-Romani practitioners working with Romani young children and their families in the early year settings, both formal and non-formal. And at the end of June 2015, we had more than 430 members from 32 countries. Some of the initial REYN individual members became national REYN networks coordinators and are still part of our community. I will always be grateful for these experiences and the opportunity to watch the REYN and the members of REYN grow and develop. However, in these first very enthusiastic years, we already identified some gaps and had to address them. Although continuous professional development is of utmost importance, focusing primarily on it is not sufficient and it was not cost effective. We had to step beyond and use REYN's potential to become a platform for advocacy for inclusive and integrated early childhood settings, with the focus on social justice, capacity building in Roma leaders, and bringing more Roma into early childhood education and care to diversify the workforce. Individual membership was great, but we learned that it will never generate a movement and provide the impact we wanted to make. Additionally, the language barrier, English, we were using English as a dominant language, significantly prevented colleagues to join REYN. Hence, establishing REYN national network started very early in 2013 and included diverse membership involving individuals, institutions, and organizations. And for the end, it was time to walk the talk and follow the slogan, nothing about us without us. We needed a REYN coordinator from the Roma community, so I welcomed my dear colleague Stanislav Daniel in October 2015 as a new ISSA program manager and REYN coordinator. On a closing note, and now I'm going to become emotional, I would like to say that it was a real privilege to manage REYN, meet inspiring people, and be present where and when the seeds of change were planted. In the future, I wish REYN to align with the title of its campaign, Dear REYN, Dream to Grow. I wish REYN to become bigger and stronger on international and national levels. I wish REYN to be courageous and effective in speaking out on behalf of Romani children, families, and communities. Give them a voice and continue breaking the cycle of silence. I wish REYN to keep on learning and creating knowledge and evidence. And please never forget to celebrate successes and support each other. Continue to share examples of good practices to showcase that so much can be done if there is enough expertise, passion, and willingness to make dreams come true. And for the end, I would like us to do something. I would like to invite you to put your hands like this, turn them like this, and say, great job done. Thank you for your attention and stay cool.
Thank you, Zorica, for this amazing overview and introduction. Now I guess you can better understand what actually REYN means to all of us. It's just not about the program. It's a Bible to our mission. It's a Bible to our professional commitment. And that's why all those emotions are involved, because all of us, we grew together with REYN. And if we fall together with REYN. And if we rise together with REYN. And this is why REYN is so special to all of us. I'm mindful of the time, and we are quite beyond the schedule, already 15 minutes late, but we still have time to catch up. Now I will ask my colleagues to share the video that we, by mistake, didn't introduce at the beginning of Zorica's speech, but it will very well capture before I'm giving the floor to the next speaker.
decided to come and take part in this training because I wanted to get the tools and strategies to go back to England to promote the Romani language more effectively in schools.
Now I'm giving the floor to Samantha. So we are going to Slovenia, and I'm pronouncing her name in very English. I should pronounce it Samantha. And let's see what she has to share with us. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you, Alyosha, and thank you, Zorica, for this beautiful introduction. I must admit that I'm also very emotional today, and I'm also very happy to see you after such a long time. And I will start my presentation with a short anecdote, which happened at one of the REYN's events. So basically, I was invited to an interview at, I think, one of the first REYN events. And the last question, as expected, was focused on the goals we want to achieve in the near future. While everyone was talking about quality education for all children, I was dreaming about having my own shoe collection, which of course I also said out loud. I should also mention that there were around 300 people at this meeting, and the recording was played at the end of the conference. Don't ask me how I felt, because I would rather sink into the ground, but well, the good thing is I haven't been kicked off the network, and I still have a lot of shoes, but unfortunately not my own shoe collection. So basically, this is a true story for the beginning, for the introduction, but now serious things. It was 2012 when I was invited to the founding of the REYN network in Opatija, Croatia, as Zorica already mentioned. And these were my first steps of acting at the international level. I have to admit that I went there basically without much expectations, but already upon getting to know all the invited participants and creating proposals on how this network should contribute to the better education of Roma children, I was overcome by a feeling of hope, freshness, new energy, and additional impetus. Soon after, I was invited to the REYN advisory group, in which we laid the foundations of the network's operation, wrote the REYN manifesto, and agreed on the implementation of concrete actions. Through study visits to several countries and various trainings to improve the quality of educational work with Roma children, we gave many professionals a better insight into the life of the Roma and equipped them with various knowledge, skills, and tools for better work for the benefit of the Roma community. I should also mention that REYN also enabled me to conduct my first international training on language and identity with special focus on Romani language. And it seems to me that at that time, we put the Romani language on a higher level and got to know it from different perspectives. I am particularly pleased that the Educational Research Institute, where I was employed at that time, we mustered the courage to establish the national network REYN Slovenia. And let me brag, we were the first country with a national REYN network. So a big bravo to us. And during that period, at the Educational Research Institute, more specifically at the Center for Quality in Education Step by Step, we were carefully planned and implemented various initiatives for higher quality work with Roma children. And among other things, we also developed linguistically and culturally appropriate didactic materials for Roma children and also for professional workers. My career path led me to the Center for School and Outdoor Education, where I am currently employed as the program manager of the multi-purpose Roma centers as innovative learning environments project. And within the framework of the aforementioned project, we are developing and implementing two innovative pedagogical practices. The first one are so-called individualized programs for Roma children, and the second one is the area of Roma cultural heritage. With the help of individualized programs, we discover and develop children's potential, talents, and strong areas. So basically, it's a strong-based approach. Given that within the framework of previous initiatives, we also came to the realization that Roma children do not know enough about their history, culture, and language. The area of Roma cultural heritage is aimed at exactly that. So basically discovering and strengthening their own identity. Professional workers from partner primary schools are also involved in the work of the multi-purpose Roma centers, who in a really concrete way strengthen their professional competences for working with Roma children. I'm currently involved also in the National Working Group for the preparation of the language education strategy until 2030, which meets at the Ministry of Education, Science and Sports. And within the framework of this working group, we are upgrading practices in the field of learning different languages. And I'm really very pleased that this time the Romani language is also included. I also share my knowledge about Romani language in the section on the Romani language on national television and radio. So I have a lot of work to do currently, but this is something that really inspires me. And at the end, if you ask me what REYN gave to me, where of course the Educational Research Institute directed me, I can only say everything necessary to empower me so that I can help empower others. And I still use and pass on a lot of knowledge and experience I gained during that period, especially content from the Romani language, because as you probably know, I speak Romani. And now a question for you, what is your superpower? REYN, Salek Feder Mistudash Bersh. REYN, wishing you all the best for your 10th anniversary, and thank you for everything and keep up the good work.
Parikeirav, Samantha. Thank you, Samantha, for your words and your wonderful introduction. It was really lovely hearing you. For those who do not know, usually Samantha and I, when I was back in Slovenia, we used to sit together from 2012 when REYN was established in afternoons, talking about REYN, talking about the issues related to early childhood. And this is how we've been spending our time back in Slovenia. So thank you for all what you have contributed to this.
Thank you for inviting me.
More than welcome. And let's continue our journey. And now we will hear why diversity in the workforce actually counts and why meaningful partnerships are crucial in making our voices stronger. Before I give the floor to Stanislav Daniel, or Stano, let's kick off with the video.
Diversity absolutely linked to social inclusion, and with the REYN networks we have the opportunity to strive for and work on services and practices where every child, every partner feels validated, feels welcome, and that's the work we want to do in Belgium.
Diversity counts, and the reason is that children are colourful all over the world and they're different all over the world. But when you walk into a kindergarten or a nursery, the teachers pretty much look all the same. Children from different backgrounds need role models from different backgrounds so they can become highly confident and aspiring adults.
And now it's my pleasure to give the floor to Stano, who was, as Dorita already mentioned, in the role of REYN coordinator between 2015 and 2019, and walk us through your story.
Yeah, thank you very much. I love to say I was the second, always second. It's a lovely place to be, but yeah, no, it's really emotional, and as I see so many familiar faces on the screen, then I also see additional familiar faces in the videos. So it's really nice to be here with all of you, and I hope there will be some kind of opportunity when all of us meet in person and hug and kiss as we used to do. I joined ISSA to coordinate REYN in 2015, and approximately half a year later, my son was born. So if you want to talk to someone about hands-on early childhood experience, then I am the person. It was a lovely experience, both from professional as well as personal perspectives, and the cause of Roma children and access to quality early childhood services remains very dear to me, even after I left ISSA and REYN to work for a philanthropic organization in Vienna. I think I would like to use two big highlights of two recent crises to illustrate how important it is that we promote diversity in the ECD workforce, and really unlock the potential of the people working on the ground. So the one example that I would like to use is the COVID crisis, the global pandemic that also hit many of us personally and professionally. And working for a philanthropic organization, I saw a huge difference between those grassroots organizations based at the community level and really like growing out of the communities, and those who were remote, because those remote ones were typically unable to do anything. They were just frozen, and they said, "Oh, our operation is hampered. We can't do much." Whereas those with good connections to the localities, to the communities, they basically said, "Oh, we have to do something. What flexibility do we have with the funds? What can we do?" And then they immediately started working on the front line, and did an amazing job there. The second crisis that I would like to mention is the war in Ukraine, and I would like to greet all our friends in Ukraine, especially Eleonora Kulchar, that I now see on my screen, and I would like to send my appreciation for all her work that she does in the border zone. But the reason I want to mention this also is the fact that the neighboring countries in Central Europe were exposed to a new kind of experience when we suddenly had influx of mothers with children running away from war. And who was the best in terms of responding to this was exactly our type of organizations that we work with, because those of you here, those are the ones working with mothers and children. It wasn't the big organizations that were able to react immediately. It was the grassroots level organizations that are that basically have the capacity and have the knowledge in working with mothers with young children. So those were there immediately, and I'm happy to see that even now the international organizations are using the capacities of the REYN members of the organizations, many of whom are present on this call. I think with REYN, we managed to break this false dichotomy between Roma and expertise, that we can now demonstrate very clearly that we have Roma who have the expertise in from academia, who have the expertise from the hands-on work on the ground. We have excellent leaders and advocates for Roma who are able to work with policymakers and present to them evidence for how important the early interventions are. Before I hand the mic further, I would also like to highlight one interesting aspect, and that's the gender balance that we also have managed to contribute to, because often, of course, when we hear gender balance, we hear about means to support the women participation, but in our case, it's more the men participation, and I think also just scanning through through those of you here that have the video on, we can see that there is some male participation. It may not be amazing, but we have managed to attract men to early childhood development, and I think this is also a big achievement of the Romani Early Years Network. When it comes to the overall presence of Roma in the early childhood workforce, I think there is a long way to go, because there are some systemic barriers that we cannot overcome. So have we brought many new Roma to the early childhood development? I don't know, but what we have achieved, and I keep referring to we, but of course you know, I'm out. It's your work. But what REYN has managed to achieve is that the Roma professionals in the early childhood development sector do not feel alone. They can be members of a larger network where they are valued, where they feel like they can contribute, and where they are respected as they are, without having to take other identities. And I think that's a great achievement, and thank you, REYN, for doing that at all levels. And speaking of the Roma leaders, I would like to pass now the mic to the video message of our dear friend from Kosovo, Driton Berisha. who cannot be with us, but I hear that he sent a video message.
Hello, friends of REYN, Roma Early Years Network. For those that don't know me, my name is Driton Berisha and I am from Kosovo, and I have been part of REYN, Kosovo REYN, for, can't say now, it has been 8 years. So I have been part of REYN for longer than I wasn't. Even though, unfortunately, I am not very close by working at the aim and objectives of REYN, I like to say that I'm a great supporter and that I'm still somehow part of it. Right now, I am part of the steering board of the REYN, and I hope to even widen my way of support and perhaps connect it to my current job or work that I do. I'm currently part of the Opera Roma Kosovo. It is a Kosovo-based movement of Roma associates, Roma friends that work towards political, economic, and social empowerment of Roma people in Kosovo. And this movement was established in 2021 as response to the injustices that Roma face every day, everywhere in Kosovo, in different fields. Currently, we are very busy with the energy crisis and trying to have, as much as we can, the government active and responsive towards the Roma community. And I can tell you we are very, very busy, and we hope that we will meet the minimum needs of the Roma people in Kosovo. We will hope we will help. As for REYN, at REYN, it is where I actually really learned the importance of the early childhood development. I have been part of different events where experiences were exchanged and trainings were delivered. In 2015, I remember we had a training that was delivered, and its topic consisted of bilingualism or multilingualism and learning the second language. Of course, it was a very relevant topic for me and for the communities that I work with, for me as a Roma, and for even my children, because our mother tongue language is Roma, and then we learn one of the majorities language, which is Serbian or Albanian, and then perhaps English, or four at once. I remember the discussions, and I remember mentioning the importance of reading to your children when they're young in the language of their hearts, which is something that the Roma community, even in Kosovo and I think internationally, struggles with because of so many dialects. Of course, it is a beautiful thing, but at the same time, it sometimes brings struggles. And finding the texts, books, stories to be able to tell the children in their own language. During my time with REYN, I was also able to, REYN put me in touch with the World Forum Foundation, where I was also able to take part in a 2 years program that was called Global Leaders for Young Children. And that was a huge network of, let's call them leaders, who worked with young children in their daily lives. And it is the time when I had the opportunity to exchange my experience with professionals from around the world. It is where we also attended courses on the brain science and the way that the child develops and the importance of the early childhood development and its influence in the later life. I have to say, I think one of the other points that I would like to mention is perhaps the research that I was trusted by REYN to conduct in 2021. And the situation in Kosovo when it comes to early childhood development is quite unsatisfactory. We still do not have it as compulsory for children to attend the year prior to first grade of primary school. And unfortunately, we don't have the capacities in Kosovo to provide and to ensure that every single child does have a one-year program before the first grade of primary school, and let alone to discuss even earlier ECD services that could be provided. So, especially with the Roma community, I think we are very much struggling. And in this research that I've conducted, I found that only 19 students from the Roma, Ashkenazi Egyptian communities were registered in 2020. Only 19 students registered in 2020 to become teachers or pedagogues, which was a very, very low number. When it comes to finding out about how many Roma Ashkenazi Egyptian teachers are there were there in 2021, it was found out that only 21 teachers 21 teachers from these communities are working with the children. Having in mind the importance of the Roma language, we only have one Roma teacher. I will not prolong it for long. I wanted to say that REYN has an important role in Europe and of course in Kosovo, mostly because of its capacity to raise awareness on the importance of the early childhood development, on the importance for the government to invest in the early childhood development. And I think it has been doing a good job, and I would really wish it to be even more louder, because networks such as REYN need for their voices to be heard. It has something very important to say. As I believe a follow-up from this report, Kosovo Education Center with its partners that together make REYN have established a working group that was working towards policy recommendation, and that was going to specifically suggest employment and policies that would employ Roma, Ashkenazi Egyptian more teachers in the schools. So REYN has a very important role, and I think we all agree to this. REYN has a lot more to say. I'm going to close this video message with a line in Roma, and it says, "Oven saste, hemujivizen kana kerna buci zajedno. Čaore kelibnaski sam uvek, sado kamen mangasa." I said, thank you and enjoy working together. We are children that enjoy playing for as long as we want it to last. Happy 10 years of university, REYN, and REYN owes you a party. Goodbye.
Thanks to Driton for his message. Unfortunately, he is attending another meeting, so he couldn't join us live, but he allocated time and recorded himself. And we are very proud of having him here, also featuring the work of our national network in Kosovo. It is a pleasure that we have a partner and an ally in ERGO, European Roma Grassroots Organization Network as well, when it comes to young Roma children. And we are really happy that we are slowly building our strong partnership and also for the brighter future to come. So Carmen, thank you for being with us, and the floor is yours.
I would like to thank you both for this nice opportunity that you give me to be part of your celebration, and to congratulate you on the 10 years of keeping Roma in the spoiled life. As it was said, I represent ERGO. I will just say a bit about who we are. We are an organization of 30 Romani grassroots NGOs across the EU, UK, Western Balkans, and Ukraine. And we value the most the Roma participation and want to ensure the voices of the Romani people is being heard in all the policies. Across our membership, we are doing a lot of work on diverse topics, from housing to education. Most of our members, actually, they are working with children, because we are here, the secretariat, and we take their voice further. And our main spot and aim is the fight against anti-Gypsyism, because we know which kind of effects can have for every young person, old or child. Is it sad that we are here to speak about how hard it is for the kids to be integrated, and also to congratulate ISSA that is showing us how it's done through their work and how they should be continued and multiplied. I was preparing my speech with some statistics and with some figures, what is happening with children, but now I realize it's not my aim to say it, because ISSA already has this and do a lot of work about it. And I will just want to focus on our common campaign that we did in 2022. So practically in Ergo did in 2018 started the campaign A Place for All, where the focus is on the transition from education to quality employment. The campaign highlights the benefits of an inclusive and diverse workplace, and also raises the employers' awareness of the motivation and competencies of the young Roma, and highlights employers' good practices in diversity and inclusion, and encourages others to follow their example. For the campaign, we have a badge that is given to the employees, which is given based on their pledge that they are hiring and they are working with Roma and also minorities. On our website, we have the stories of the Roma employees and the budget given to the companies and institutions who are inclusive and diverse in the labor market, and they are from different countries across EU. In 2020, we had a common event called Dream to Grow, how to make Europe labor market a place for all, with the Romani Early Network, REYN, an initiative of the International Step-by-Step Association, where practically we had Roma professionals who told the stories from our campaign, A Place for All, and their campaign, A Dream to Grow, on their pathways to become who they are today. They show us the difference that enabling us to inclusive and diverse educational and working environment can make for society, where we had a variety of speakers from institutions and policymakers. The aim of the event from the both campaign was to raise awareness of what it means to have benefits of ensuring quality, inclusion, and diversity in education and at work, and end of the obstacles that Roma needs to overcome to be able to find it in the employment. Besides offering inspiration for the readers, we also had a human library who also call to action the policymakers and the employers that more needs to be done to overthrow these obstacles and to ensure diversity and inclusion in Europe's labor market. Diversity and commitment is one of the main drivers of change. Roma is a very young population, and without a clear structure in investing in quality education and care and quality employment, again, we will find ourselves having to read the heartbreaking stats on how we are left out. Some of the recommendations that were collected after the event, and also together with the young Roma who were part of the both campaigns, and we are also using at our work here at the European level and also with our members, it is that we should end structural discrimination in education by settings and abolish Roma-only schools and classes and sanction school staff who discriminate between children. Ensure public services in Roma communities by accessible, affordable transport, teacher training and supplies, school materials and equipment, early intervention support, efforts to include Roma children in every child education and care, nurseries and kindergarten, to train school mediators and in-class assistants to support teachers and educators, and to provide majority language support, not just for the Roma children, and after-hours support with homework. We should also have an intersectional approach to support Roma girls, wraparound support for poor families, housing income, and support and nutrition. We should really focus and should be one of the main of all the organizations, the promotion of positive narratives of diversity and social cohesion with school settings, as well as better awareness of Roma, their history, culture, and tradition, and bring all together Roma and non-Roma pupils, Roma and non-Roma parents, school staff, and local authorities to identify and implement positive solutions. It's a lot to speak about it, but I will just like to congratulate you and to thank you for this amazing work that you are doing. And my last message it is that without dialogue and involvement of Roma and travelers in all process, we will not have an inclusive and diverse society. Thank you, ISSA, for all the work you do for the children and local services to increase diversity. And we are really looking forward to work with you and to bring the positive narrative that without diversity, we cannot be equal in society.
Thank you, Carmen. Thank you to you. Thank to your colleagues at Ergo for being our partner and also inspiring us with, what needs to be done, what needs to be prioritized. And I believe that our cooperation has a bright future. We have a lot of things to say out loud at European and local level. So please do, dear participants, follow us and learn more what the future is bringing us. We would like to go to our next programmatic block, which is Breaking the Silence. We will kick off with a short video, and afterward, the video I will ask Dr. Fernando Macias Aranda, or Fernando, to join us and share with us some preliminary results from the cross-country analysis. But let's first check the video. So, Fernando, the floor is yours. Let's hear and let's break this silence and let's hear about the research we've been doing together with University of Barcelona and that it's soon going to be fully launched. Until now, you can, on our website, and my colleagues will share in the chat, you can look at the infographics from 11 countries, but more about the data from cross-country analysis, we will hear from Fernando.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me say that I'm really emotional today because I perfectly remember the first day I met you, all of you guys in Croatia. So it's really an honor for me to be here now in this collaboration of the study. I will present the preliminary results, as Alyosha mentioned before, very briefly, especially because you have all the information in the infographics in the ISSA REYN website, and very soon you will have the final report with all the recommendations and also the analysis in deep of the data. I have a presentation for you guys. I hope you can see it. So as you see in the video, the study tried to assess and present the situation of young Roma children under 6 years of age and also their families in these 11 countries, but at the same time to identify successful actions, practices, and also policies in the early childhood development especially taking into account what the scientific evidence is saying that we should do in order to really improve the situation of this vulnerable population. We go, we focus the study in these 5 key areas: health and well-being, safety and security, family and living environment, early learning, also responsive parenting, but especially taking into account how the anti-Gypsyism, the discrimination against Roma, is also affecting the situation of these Roma children and their families. First, before go to these preliminary results, let me say 2 important limitations of this study. One is the sample, because we are going to a sample who represent the vulnerability inside the vulnerability. We interview and we pass the questionnaires to the most vulnerable families in these 11 countries. So this is not a sample that represents the reality of all the Roma people in Europe, but we should take into account the data because it means that many families still are facing this discrimination. And also, as you already know, many things happened in this year, also the war in Ukraine, and also another problems in countries like Belgium or Croatia, and also Serbia, in order to collect the data. But even these barriers, let me say that, we have these preliminary results that we would like to share with you today. The first is about the difficulties and barriers that young Roma children are facing, and also their families. In the family status and living condition, we observe that in the major part of families have a really low educational level, and also families are facing high rates of unemployment and or inactivity, also barriers to access to financial support, and really alarming, the poor living conditions with difficulties to access, for instance, to hot water or running and drinking water, and also to have toilet inside the room. As you can see in this graphic, in the major part of the countries, the percentage of families that are unemployed or inactive represents more than 65% of the cases. So we are talking about a situation of the families that in many cases they don't have a stable or a current incomes in order to improve their situation. Also problems related to the children under 6 years of age that have their own room. In many cases, the children are sharing even the bed with their parents. So this is also having an impact in the development of these children. And if we go to the health and well-being situation, we observe problems in the immunization of the Roma children, also dangerous habits and situations related with maternal health, also barriers to access to family and emotional support, because in many cases the families, they are not asking professionals when they are having a health or problem or well-being problem, and also alarming eating habits and routines. All this data you can observe in the infographics in the website. One thing that we would like to share with you today, before the debate that is going to happen right now, is that in many cases, families are living in a household with someone with a disability, which means that we have these problems in the environment that these children are growing up. But another indicator that is explaining that this situation is most vulnerable in comparison to other groups is that in these houses, in these homes, in many cases, are people with disabilities. So what means, or what at the end represents another barrier in the development of these children and families. In terms of safety and security and also early learning, the 2 most important or significant data that we observe is that there are a lot of barriers to access to social security and social protection, and mainly, or in the major part of the cases, families feel that they are living in non-safety areas for their children and for them to associated with crime, violence, or vandalism. In terms of early learning, we observe also that they have barriers to access to quality educational services, also to facilities near home, like library, theater, sports center, etc. And also how the country language is a barrier to improve the educational learning of these Roma children, because many of them, they are not able to speak in Romanian or in Bulgarian. They only speak in Romanes, and this also means a barrier in terms of their educational and social success. As you can see in this graphic, in all the cases, more than 50% of the families feel that they are living in a place or neighborhood unsafety for their children. And finally, we would like to say that in terms of responsive parenting, Roma mothers are the main caregivers of Roma children, and they don't not get enough support from other family members. And we observed also that there's not enough time playing with Roma children, which also is a barrier in this development. As we mentioned before, anti-Gypsyism is a barrier that explains in many cases these barriers. A huge part of the Roma children and their families face this discrimination when accessing public services or other premises as early childhood services, playgrounds, kindergarten, etc. And finally, the two data that we are in this moment going deep with the final report is we observe that in all the cases, mostly, countries have a specific policy in early childhood development, and also a policy specific addresses to Roma people. But what we are observing is in many cases, Roma children under 6 are not having a benefit of these policies because these policies are not related. So countries have a policy framework in favor of Roma, but Roma children and the exist and families and their families, in many cases, they are not having the opportunity to access to these policies. So we are going to recommend to these countries and also to Europe to put in connection these ECD policies with the Roma policies framework. But what is our contribution in this study is that these policies should be based in evidence-based practices and policies, because our people, we don't have more time to experiment and to do things and let's go to happen if it's working, it's not working. We now have many practices and policies that are working very well in many countries. So we need to create this new framework, especially based on these policies that are having a really social impact in terms of improving the situation of these families. So what we are doing now is finalizing this data and working in the final report that I hope very soon you will have open for you in the REYN and ISSA website. That's it.
Perfect. Thank you, Fernando, for this brief and concise overview about the research and some challenges that we will have to address. I'm again conscious about the time, so I'm asking you to allow me to extend at least the event 15 minutes more. In case you will have to leave at noon, feel free to just disconnect. You will have the recording and you could watch it later. But I'm very sad because we really prepared a great presentation, and it would be pity to cut people now at the end and ask them to be very short. Although now I'll give the floor to my colleague Francesca, who was supporting me from the very beginning in coordinating the REYN, and I would like to give a floor to her to pose the 2 questions to national REYNs, and she was also very engaged with them. So thank you, Francesca, for supporting me here today again.
Thank you so much, Alyosha, and I'm very happy and honored to be here today. I will be very, very quick. So first, I would like to invite Miroslav Sklenka from REYN Slovakia to share with us some insight from the work in the country. And Miro, from the REYN research study that Fernando just presented, we learned that 93.6% of children in Slovakia do not have access to quality early childhood services, and around 50% of them do not have public spaces or playgrounds near their houses to play and be happy. So what are the practices and the programs that REYN Slovakia is implementing to enable these young Roma children to benefit from quality programs and services?
Hello, greetings to all from Slovakia. Greetings to all my friends and all the REYN members. I know that these numbers are very sad. There are several reasons for that. One of the main reasons is the low investment into early childhood education and care services. And the OECD places Slovakia amongst countries with the lowest investment in ECEC when you compare it and when you cut it to the per capita, the gross domestic product. So this is very sad. And there are several barriers and challenges. First of all, these are the low investments, and the smaller municipalities are not able to apply for grants, so they have no chance to construct or to build new kindergartens or to enlarge those that already exist. Then there is a geographic inaccessibility of kindergartens for poor Roma children. And of course, there are still stereotypes and prejudice from the side of the majority towards Roma community. And in recognition of the importance of ECC, the improved access to early childhood services has become one of the main priorities or key objectives of our government. It's part of all the strategies, all the national documents, and I am very happy that members of REYN Slovakia have had the chance to participate in all these advisory governmental committees and have contributed to the development of several very important documents. The number is so high because we did the research, or we contributed to the research, and we did it in marginalized Roma communities. So this is not showing the overall situation in Slovakia, because at least half of the Roma population in Slovakia is well integrated. But in those marginalized Roma communities, the number is very high, it's horrible. And of course, when we are speaking about public spaces where children can play and learn something, this is even worse. So because in those Roma settlements, there is no place where to go, where to play. And our organization implements several projects where the target groups are Roma. And I will mention at least one of them. These are the ECEC play hubs that are very famous and are working very well in many countries. And these are the safe spaces where relationships between young Romani children and also the adults and their parents can be built. Children can borrow their toys, for instance, or educational materials. They can bring them home. Children and adults of all ages are welcome to meet, spend the time together, speak, share experiences, or play games with their children. And also parents and grandparents or practitioners even can gain some knowledge and experience from various workshops, for instance, the parenting workshops. And currently we in Slovakia, we are running 4 ECC play hubs for Roma children or for Romani communities. All of them are placed in kindergartens or in primary schools. And of course, this good practice is not only for Roma, it's also suitable for all the other target groups. Since the start of the war in Ukraine, people from Ukraine have left there for neighboring countries. Slovakia is one of those countries. And in July, we opened 6 hubs with the financial support of UNICEF and with a very kind support, technical support from the side of ISSA and ICDI. And it looks that we will continue also in 2023. So we are very happy. Maybe we will open even more play hubs in the future. So that's what we are doing.
Thank you so much, Miro, and thank you for sharing your experience about play hubs that we know that are really a successful practice, not just in Slovakia, but in many EU countries. And I will just now pass the floor to Sanela from REYN, Bosnia and Herzegovina. I hope that you are here. You can hear me, Sanela, because we have some questions for you. Okay. So from the REYN evidence, we have also learned that at least 47% of young Roma children in your country did not receive all the required vaccine for their age. So we would like to know a little bit more about the situation in your country and why there is such a high rate of not fully immunized Roma children. And what are some of the responses or action that you are putting in place to mitigate this problem?
First of all, to send my greetings for all of you who are participating today on this great event. As all others says, we are all very emotional today. Just to back that, me personally and Kali Sara become the member of the REYN network in 2017. So we are together 5 years. And why we are together? Because we need a partner, we need a platform for joint work. So it is very important for us to have someone who have a capacity, have a knowledge and have experience and sharing all of this with us. As I said on our previous meeting, I'm working more than 20 years in NGO sector. And when you're working alone, you cannot see better results. You need to have your friends, your partners together in fights for the Roma children's the best interest, I can say it like this. I'm actually in the middle of the organizing the health days in Bosnia at the moment, with doctors trying actually to raise awareness about importance of the vaccination. I know that in this report, 45% of the children doesn't have completed immunization process, but when we start to speak about immunization in BNH in 2015, we find out actually just 5% of Roma children who had in that period finished all immunization. So we know that it's a very big problem. As I said, we're really trying to organize all activities which can bring more children who will actually have finished immunization process at the moment, and how much is important that for the health situation of Roma children. There is so many barriers and obstacles for this process of the immunization in BNH. I will not speak about political situation, how we actually divided, how many level of the institution or politicals we have in BNH. I think all of you know very well, but it's true that there is a place where we have to actually work much more. And we started with institution to working on institutional solving the problem of the immunization, because not just to say that Roma parents are the problem. Roma problems are just one part of the problem of the process of the immunization, but the another and the major problem is actually a problem with the process of the immunization in BNH. I would like just to say that during these 5 years, we really have great partners in this REYN initiative and REYN network. And without them, I don't see that we could actually make further and better process and steps. I will back in 2015 when we really started to work on very concrete issue to strengthen the position of Roma children. And we know that immunization was one part, but also enrollment of Roma children in preschool education, as my previous colleague says. In 2015, when we first time make analysis how many Roma children attending preschool education, actually kindergarten, we couldn't find one Roma child enrolled in preschool education without NGO project. At the moment, after our intervention, with help of the UNICEF in the first place as our biggest partner. We have some positive example, positive, how to say this, practice that the fees for the enrollment of the children in preschool education, kindergartens is decreased, and now it's more applicable for all people who actually cannot pay kindergarten on the beginning. Yes, there is so many other things which we are working, and as I said on the beginning, without our partner in NGO sector on the first place, but also people who working in these institutions, and plus of course people from the Roma NGO, Roma mediators, I cannot see that we can make better and a positive initiative in BNH. I would like really to thank all my colleagues from the REYN networks supporting our job, sharing actually experience and knowledge together with us.
Thank you, dear Sanela, for your contribution. Thanks to Miro, and thanks to you, Francesca, as well, for always being beside us and supporting our work. So now we reached the official end time of the event, but we have two more very important speakers who are bringing very important topic. We first now we go to a policy level, which we are all very interested to. And it's my pleasure to introduce you to Mrs. Brigita Mark from the Slovenian Ministry of Education, Science and Sport. She will be telling us more about the practices within the Slovenian policy frameworks. And from a country level, to see what they as country did and what is possible, what are still the challenges. Because usually we always often say the hardest part is to reach the policy or political level. It's hard to break through over there. But with the Slovenian example, we can basically become, in a way, inspired that if there is a political will within the institution, the changes can be done at a systematic level. So, Brigita, I'm happy to give you the floor.
Thank you, Alyosha. So, good afternoon to all of you. I have to say that I'm really pleased to be here, even though I don't feel that I'm here like the official role in the ministry, more like personal dedication, because I am a long time now also part of the national REYN and international, but still I was thinking, I have to say, we are running short of time, but I have to say that while I'm listening to all of you, I think we are the proof that when they say the official or unofficial working group cannot work efficiently if there is more than, I don't know, 5, 10 members, because hearing to all of you, we can all see what the great results can be done. So if I just mention now the national level, what it is, what we are doing in Slovenia, maybe the most crucial, except from several action plans, strategies, short-term plans, medium, long-term plans, maybe the most important one to mention and to divide from the rest would be the national program of measures of the government of the Republic of Slovenia for the Roma, which was published last year, and it was for the period almost of 10 years. Since it is really strategic document of the government, which defines the main goals and fundamental measures to improve the socio-economic situation of the Roma community and its members, and as well create conditions for increasing the social inclusions of members of the Roma community and their empowerment, as well as strengthening the participation of members of the Roma community, and the process of improving their own position and achieving full inclusion and equality in the Slovenian society in this next period. I have to say that apart from that, this is the government recognized the importance of this. It is not something that we have to do because of the, I don't know, international or EU regulations, that we dedicated really a lot of work in this. And we are proud that it was not only some so-called officials or some really experts or PhD persons would make this, but it was really in cooperation with many stakeholders. And also that this national program was created through a long-term process of consultation and cooperation with the representatives of the Roma community. And also all those NGO sector, so institutions and organizations that have been dealing with members of the Roma community on the ground, which is essential, and it was essential for us, where environments where the Roma people live for many years. So it is also based on the past experience and findings. And maybe it is also important that the competent barriers of the measures will try to take this reality and facts into account as much as possible within the framework of their detailed also regional programs. As it was heard before, it is not something that, because the government and the system never can do everything. It is, we have to rely and cooperate with national, local, and then on the micro level also with all the stakeholders there. And to be, maybe just to shorten, maybe to mention some, in order to contribute to the long-term strategic goals, the new program pursues the following sectoral and horizontal goals. We have thought about all directions. So just some are the higher level of involvement of Roma children in preschool education programs, successful completion of primary school education, inclusion of members of the Roma community in further education, and acquisition of knowledge and experience for successful integration into the labor market, promoting the integration of socially endangered and vulnerable population groups into the labor market, improving the readiness of members of socially threatened and vulnerable groups to enter the other networks, and elimination, maybe this is also essential, elimination of harmful practices in the Roma community, such as minors fleeing to harmful environments, so-called early marriages, and forced marriages, and raising awareness of the harmfulness of these phenomena and the importance of action by competent institutions. Okay, it is not 30 of all that can be named still. Just to focus maybe on the what we say is the last system measure that was really, that is successful, which are the short, so-called short programs that are incorporated into the system from the year 2018. And with these programs, in the duration of 240 hours, we are reaching really good experience. Not only that they are like the bridge for the integration also in the other daily and short-term programs, but that parents are recognizing also for the younger siblings that they trust more into the system. And so we cannot say that we have reached the full potential. We still have many things to do. But we are really trying to do our best in this in many regards. And maybe just to conclude, that with the final thought that it's not important to have good, positive attitude or wishes in life, because we all know that it's crucial to have in mind in general, but also in this case where we are working, that you get what you work for and not what you wish for. So I would like to congratulate to all of you for all the past work and looking forward to the ongoing cooperation with all of you. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, dear Brigitta. It's really a pleasure having you with us. And we do hope and strongly believe that many European countries will follow the example and this inspirational energy that you are bringing at the policy level. And now from the country level, from a member state directly to Brussels, to European Commission. We are delighted to have Ms. Lavinia Banu from DG Just Non-Discriminatory and Roma Coordination Team with us today, and I would really like to give her floor. I'm sorry that we've been a little bit late. Lavinia, I know that you must have a very busy schedule, but we are so happy having you here with us, and the floor is yours.
No problem, Alyosha, and thank you so much for the invitation. I'm also very sorry I didn't manage to join from the beginning, but I did manage to hear some very interesting presentations, and I was listening very carefully the very short, in a nutshell, study presented by Fernando. And definitely I'm gonna get back to you with a few questions in that sense. I would be first of all interested in why the selection of the countries. Maybe you explained it at the beginning, but in any case we can coordinate on that bilaterally. Like Alyosha already presented, I'm Lavinia Banu, working for the European Commission Roma Coordination Unit, which is this unit quite famous for its work on the EU framework. And now we are at a very crucial and important moment because as of last year, we've asked all the member states to submit new national Roma integration strategies, or like we call them now, EU national strategic frameworks. And again, very important moment because we are supposed to publish our assessment report looking at the quality of the strategies submitted by the member states. We were supposed to publish by the end of the year. I'm not really sure if that's going to be possible. I was one of the positive ones in the team. I thought we're going to make it by the end of the year, but as it seems now, this might not be possible. But in any case, if it's not going to be by the end of the year, early next year, we will publish it, and then we are also planning to organize a few stakeholders meeting to discuss the results and the findings of these assessment reports. Regarding the topic of today, I'm personally grateful to REYN ISSA for bringing up this super important topic. I think nobody can challenge the importance of bringing up the future of our children and the present of our children, and to have an overview of absolutely everything that is happening, both at the national level and at the European level in terms of efforts to improve the quality of our children and those of the Roma children in particular, considering the gap and inequalities. With regards to the framework, I'm not gonna have a very detailed presentation because it's rather late, and I know it was a full event with a lot of presentations. But maybe I will just give you some very small overview as to how we prioritize the Roma children in the EU Roma strategic framework, and why we have always explained that we had this integrated approach by putting emphasis on the 7 objectives of the EU framework, such as, for instance, equality, inclusion, and participation, but also putting again emphasis on the 4 areas of the previous framework: education, employment, health, and housing. Roma children have had an explicit focus within the new EU Roma strategic framework. And one of the reasons for that is because we've looked practically of the data from FRA in 2016, where it was obvious that the poverty rate amongst the Roma children was still alarmingly high, with 80% of the Roma children being still living in poverty. and for this reason, we somehow guided the member states, or the word that came first to my mind was like push the member states, but I think the politically correct term is guided the member states to put a more explicit focus also on the Roma children. It was again done in an integrated approach, but what we had this time to make it a bit more explicit was the EU headlines. And I wanted to give you a few examples of the EU headlines in this respect. And for instance, we asked the member states to ensure that by 2030, the majority of Roma children escape poverty, that at least 70% of them participate in preschool education, or that the majority of Roma youth complete at least upper secondary education by the same timeline. In member states with significant Roma population, and this is very important because the EU Roma strategic framework had a nuance of flexibility towards the member states on the basis of the challenges that they have at the national level. But with regards to the member states with significant Roma population, we have asked to bear in mind a particular EU headline target, which aims to ensure that by 2030, less than 1 in 5 Roma children attend schools where most or all children are Roma. So I'm going to stop here. We have more. But maybe because Alyosha asked me in particular to give a few examples of mainstream tools that we have to target the quality of education or the quality of life with regards to children in particular. And some of you might know that, in fact, the EU Roma strategic framework asked the member states when designing their action plan on the European child guarantee to align with the measures foreseen within the national Roma strategic frameworks. So we are also involved in the exercise of assessing the action plan submitted by the member states with regards to the European child guarantee. And the last time I checked, we had 17 member states that had submitted these action plans. A few of them have made the parallel and included also the focus on Roma children. What we've noticed in terms of assessing, and to give you a little bit of a hint, is that they were lacking budgets, which is also something that you're going to see in our assessment report, that unfortunately member states did not cover this aspect very well, also when it comes to the national Roma strategic frameworks, despite the available EU funding that is made for these particular areas of the framework, but also for the mainstream tool. What I would also like to mention, Alyosha, you can make me a sign if you want me to stop in 1-2 minutes. So I wanted to refer a little bit to the European semester. Some of you might know that up until 2 years ago, we have had country-specific recommendations that also included Roma, and they had the explicit focus on education. With the new crisis regarding COVID, then we had a process that kind of temporarily replaced the European semester, and that's the recovery and resilience plans. So then we took the advantage and we asked the member states to include Roma within the recovery and resilience plans. You might all know that that was not a very successful exercise. Very few member states have actually made the parallel and included Roma within these plans. But what is available, and I would like to bring this to your attention, is that despite the fact that Roma are not explicitly integrated within the recovery and resilience plans, you do have these mainstream areas covering the mainstream population, and therefore Roma can still be targeted within these recovery and resilience plans. And this is going to be made extremely visible and evident in our assessment report that I just mentioned at the beginning of my intervention. But then in addition to this, I want to tell you that now we switched back to the European semester, and now we started again bringing the emphasis on the importance to keep the country-specific recommendations on Roma. Maybe it's not going to be done with an explicit focus on education like it was done in previous years, but from the angle of a more integrated approach. And the last point I wanted to make today is the enforcement of the EU legislation, which we all know that is extremely important, and it is a weapon that brings legitimacy to the European Commission when dealing with the member states. Of relevance is the fact that we already have a precedent of 3 infringement proceedings against the 3 EU member states, Hungary, Slovakia, and the Czech Republic, with regards to segregation in education. And this is something that we are very determined to take even further, and to make sure that all these tools that we have available are going to be used to to improve the quality in education and in the life of the Roma children and to Roma in general. So thank you so much for having me today. And I think we're going to be keeping in touch with regards to your studies. And I also want to take the opportunity to congratulate you for the 10 years of intensive work. As you may know, for the European Commission, we really consider the civil society an important partner without which we cannot deliver the extremely ambitious work that we want to deliver. And I would also like to greet all the participants for staying so long. And we will hear each other again as of next year. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lavinia. And yeah, as you said, the partnership, being partners, collaborating, joining forces, this is something that is close to our approach of work, also in REYN and ISSA. And at this point, I'm sorry I have to cut off a part of the event. We are also a little bit long, but I'll just close it. We had intention to invite also all of you participating to share your thoughts, reflections, but I'm sure we will follow up soon with you. And I see Silvia Palagi, that used to be part of early childhood program team at OSF, is also writing. We had an agreement that she will pop up and say hi and reflect a little bit, but due to the time constraints, we just agreed that she will send a message. I'm very happy that she is also together with us, which also acknowledges the work we are doing and the appreciations for REYN. So dear participants, dear speakers, dear colleagues, we are reaching really the end of today's session. And so what are some key takeaways that I wrote down? So I'll read them so it will go quicker and faster. So REYN as an initiative of ISSA stays committed and to continuing advocating for young children to reach their full and healthy development and potential. We are aware we won't be able to achieve the ambitious goals alone. That's why we are inviting all of you here today to join forces in making a difference for our future generations. We remain open to collaborations and partnership in making our societies an inclusive place for all, where each and every one of us can grow, develop, and thrive. I'm wishing you a magnificent Friday afternoon now. Have a safe and lovely winter holiday. Kivauninas tu menge shukar palplaunate, auchen sauste, temapo bisteren pru chavore. And before we log off, let us close this event with a video that is dedicated to young Roma children and their families in Ukraine, who are affected by a horrific war, and not just the war, but also discrimination. Let's not forget about them, and let's see them, let's hear them, and let's stand with them.
Я була мамина дочка, А потом мы сидели возле окна, а потом окно покупалось, а потом стены встречались, а потом окно тоже. А потом мы в подвал, и потом мы прятались.